So thank you so much for being willing to talk with me. I was just hoping you could introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about your show, Millennials Are Killing Musicals.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Nico Juber. I'm the writer of Millennials Are Killing Musicals, book, lyrics, and music. And it is a show about reclaiming happiness in a social media filtered world. It's 90 minutes long, roughly, we think. We'll see soon, but it's usually times out about that. It's fun and funny and fast paced. People have described it kind of as like a musical sitcom style, which I don't know if that's a style. I'm not sure if a lot of other shows have ever been like that before. But yeah, really centered on women, and but I think is accessible by sort of the millennial generation or anyone who wants to sort of understand the existential crisis of millennials. But yeah, I think that's kind of the gist of it.
Yeah, so I'll start with sort of kind of an obvious question. So why are millennials killing musicals?
So it's a silly title, but it's also it's kind of a question, or it's provocative to the audience, and it's supposed to first of all make people laugh, right? It's a comedy, and I want people to know that from the title of the show. I take it you are not a millennial.
No, I'm
Okay.
Gen Z, little younger.
Yeah, so I am I'm an elder millennial. So we have spent our sort of entire lives being told that we're killing everything, right? From beer to napkins to top sheets. It's become this running joke where we all kind of roll our eyes and go, okay, now what else are we killing? So generationally, you tell a generation that you're killing everything long enough, everyone starts to feel kind of bad about themselves, right? So
Yes.
there's a little bit of taking that back and kind of that thing that has been used sort of weaponized against us for a long time. But in the show, we have three women who are really dealing with the loss of their own identity in as women in motherhood on social media. And there's a Greek chorus of social media filters that are kind of following them around and messing with their lives. And they're using this millennial kill list, hashtag millennial kill list, to kind of just lob at them. And it starts funny and it starts kind of, just like, and it becomes really oppressive by the end of the show. You see it start to affect them in their daily lives. And so it's again mirroring kind of this relationship that we have with social media and how we let it affect us. We filter ourselves. It keeps us from reaching our authentic happiness. And that, we have a generation that has been put under, a lot of these pressures under not the most ideal circumstances, right? Of like, global financial crises. And we've seen a lot. And we have a lot of stuff that we've had to come up against. So I think creating some generational understanding is like one of the objectives of it. And then also making people laugh and have a good time. Because I think we all need that right now.
Oh yeah, no, and that sounds so original and creative and fun. And I mean, being a Gen Z, I'm starting to see a lot of those things be leveled against us. I mean, we're still at the
Yeah.
beginning of that, but like you can sort of see those same, Gen Z are killing whatever industry beginning to shift
Yeah.
downward.
Absolutely. And I think that part of the thing is like examining why do we blame generation like why it's so arbitrary. And I think what can we do in theater but hold a mirror up to kind of what we're doing and what you're I don't want to no spoilers for the plot, but
No,
there is
I'm
a
very much
little,
looking forward to seeing this new show
yeah,
without knowing much.
yeah, there's a little bit of a nod to sort of, what happens next with the next generation. So but I think that if we can break that cycle of everyone
Yes.
blaming a generation for everything that's going wrong, I think we'd be in better shape.
All right, so your show is fully embracing online theater creators to a much greater extent than really shows at any stage of development, to say nothing of where your show is in development. So, what made you choose to do that, and did that stem from anything in regards to the show itself?
Yeah, I think it's a combination of factors. I mean, definitely it's a show so rooted in social, just our relationship with social media that it feels like a really natural progression of the way that we're talking about the show. And, you know, just Sierra and I kind of as a team so far, Sierra and I really bonded over wanting to create more accessibility in the industry and I think that this is one of the ways, and equity and all the things that we want to see. And I think this is one of the ways that we can do that by letting people see the process, demystifying it a little bit. Because I think, especially, I'm a relative newcomer to all of this, although I've been working on this show for 4.5 years and have had some little successes here and there. But this is, this is a big step for me. And I think letting people see what this is like, I would have loved to have seen that as, as a writer myself. So I think that we kind of invite transparency across the board. We're like, ask us questions if you want to know about what goes into creating a show like this. Because again, that's how we're going to get new work and original work. And I think that that is, because we're the scrappy show that could, we kind of have to do things a little differently than other people are doing them.
Definitely. And I mean, so many shows like will invite you in, but it's in a very like polished, like here are the photos and here are like this professionally shot video. And so it's refreshing to see a show that is sort of embracing a lot of the process itself and all of the ups and downs of that.
Yeah, no, thank you for saying that. And I think part of it's having confidence in your material, right? Like,
Oh yes.
a lot of it, as you're working on these things, it's like every stage. Last year we did our 54 Below show and we did an industry reading, and a lot of really well-meaning people saying things like, oh, don't do it before it's ready, or do something out of town. And I think we were confident then, and we're confident now that people understand that this is a work in development, and we keep getting the feedback that is propelling us to the next stage. And I think we feel pretty good about, where the show is now and getting it up on its feet. And it's a comedy. Like, you can't develop comedy really and truly without people seeing it, interacting with it, laughing at it. And especially in New York, where like there's a thing that happens with theater that only happens, I think, in New York. I mean, some other places too, but I think for a show like this, the audience is definitely here. And so we just believe that really firmly and feel really confident about letting people into the process. But I will it was scary, it's scary for me as a writer. We had all the folks in to watch the table read. And table reads are notoriously like, people are saying things for the first time, they're coming out of their mouth, and you go, oh my gosh, is this gonna work? But again, we had confidence in the team, and I think it was a great first table read, like for a cast that had never gone through the show before. So I think that, again, you put, professionals who are incredible actors and a team together who is all working towards the same goal. Why not let people see that process and come along for the ride? And I will say too that I started kind of following, a bunch of you all went to see Shucked, and like, I had never seen that before. Again, people coming in to the process, and that kind of was a light bulb moment for me to go, why would we wait until that round? Why wouldn't we get people excited, invite them into the process, let them know about the show now, and be along for the whole ride, so that by the time we are at that point where we do that, big commercial run, hopefully, fingers crossed, that it's an even bigger group of people, and people are excited to see what's changed, what's new, do we have new songs, have we cut anything? So that was I think a big moment, I'm sure, for all of you all too, just to have had that opportunity.
Then I would also ask that, considering your background and how the show is being developed in regards to the pandemic, and you not being at the beginning of this process a theater creator in New York, so how did that also change how you approach the development of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, it feels like the pandemic was in a way very formative to my career, just because I started working on this in 2018, and then got much more serious about it in 2019, which was a terrible time to get serious about a musical theater writing career. I worked for 15 years in marketing, for high-tech marketing, before making this jump, and I still did it. I quit 2 years ago, but I was still kind of trying to do both. And it got a little wild there during the pandemic because I've got two kids and it was like Zoom school, and it was just it was a whole thing. I couldn't keep it up, but I hadn't ever done some of this development work in person yet. And I think that made me open to different possibilities of what that could be. So we did a reading in 2020 I think it was July 2020. And it was online on Zoom. We didn't have a fancy Zoom. It was literally people in their boxes emoting during the songs being played. And
Yeah.
it was kind of novel because it was the first one that anyone had done since the beginning of the pandemic. So people were happy to work. I mean, we paid actors. It was a 29-hour equity reading. And I didn't know what I was missing, right? Because I had not done the magic that happens in the room as far as development. But it really showed up and we actually did that twice. The second one was much fancier. That was in January 2021. At that point, the expectations were a lot higher for a Zoom reading. We did, special video stuff, and it was very cool. But every time it gave me structural feedback, right, on like what's working, and I was able to make progress on the show. And because it's just me as a solo creative, I, didn't need to be in the room, although I've worked with other people and you don't have to necessarily be in the same room anymore. But I could just keep working on it. And while all of that was happening, I was able to submit for, in the musical writer world, there are like awards and contests and submissions that you can do that give you little feathers in your cap as you go along. So Millennials was an O'Neill semifinalist 2 years in a row. And so that was kind of oh, okay, I always see you. Or, I NAMPed had a contest for a new short musical, like a brand new short musical, and I wrote one in 2020 which ended up winning, and it was a total blind submission process. But that was my first production. My first professional production was during the pandemic, and that's how I met Sierra Renee when she directed that. So that was sort of, again, these little opportunities. Even the song that I wrote for the Drama League with a collaborator that ended up winning an award also was a Welcome Back to Broadway song. There would have been no Welcome Back to Broadway contest.
Yeah. That's an entire opportunity that would not have existed.
Right. So I walked away with this, Drama League Songwriting Award and this NAMPed award, and for things that didn't exist before the pandemic. And I was also able to, at the same time, take, Zoom networking opportunities and take producing classes and really just learn while people had the time, right, to do the Zoom networking. So that when things started coming back, I could come out. I'm based in LA normally, but I could come out every couple months for a week, and maybe I would have a song at 54 Below, or and there would always be a good reason for me to come out, and just say hi to people, do networking, and that's. So I don't know that this would have all been possible before, just the way that the community works. I think there is definitely more of an openness to new ways of doing things, new folks coming in. And I think that of course, this has been a devastating time for so many people. So I don't want to make it sound like, well, screw everyone else, it was great for me. But I think that I tried to utilize the time the best that I could. And I think it would have been easy in a lot of ways to kind of go, okay, well, I'm just gonna wait till all this is over and then pick back up and do my job. And I kind of, once you get sort of, I don't know how to explain it, but it's you're sort of called to do this, because why else would you do this? It's such a hard thing to do. You just are okay, this is what I'm doing, I have to do this. You kind of figure out how to do it and you make it work. And but yeah, I am kind of grateful that I didn't know the magic of what I was missing, an in-person development before going in, because I think I probably would have said, oh no, let's wait, because I just wouldn't have known.
So then, because of that, is there anything you've noticed that you think has changed about either your approach or the show itself since you've been able to have that in-person experience with developing the show?
Yeah. Well, I've learned so much at every stage, and it's been so different, and I learn new things every time, and it's different people, different actors. So absolutely being in the room. And I think that there's, especially again with comedy, hearing people reacting to it, really being able to tweak, like I would say that piece of it is the biggest piece. Just what's working comedy wise.
Yeah.
Story structure, I think, is fine. And songs you can do remotely, but I really think the tweaking of it. Then also there was stuff I just didn't know, like transitioning, like between, just functional stuff, because it's not Zoom. You can't just turn off
Mhm.
So I think that's been a little bit of a learning curve for me, like really getting it on its feet, working it through with Sierra and going, oh, okay, we need some lines to cover that, now that they're moving in
Oh yeah.
space.
Scene changes actually have to happen.
Yeah, scene changes actually have to have costume changes.
Yeah.
It's like people don't just magically put on a little filter or
Mhm.
a hat or whatever it is. So I think that the functional stuff has been the biggest.
Mhm.
But we did actually a round of development in January. Sierra and I went to her alma mater, Baldwin Wallace, in Ohio, and we had the students there, musical theater students.
Mhm.
We just like ran the show, I don't know, 7 times probably, and we recast it every time with the student, and they were so down for playing and having fun with it. But it was great because I was just sitting there like making changes on the fly, and it's like, okay, new script, we're running it again. Okay, new script, we're running it again.
Yeah.
And that I think was a totally different, it was libretto only. We weren't doing any music. I learned a lot in that too, because there were going to be some people who weren't necessarily like, right for the parts that they
Yeah.
had. But ultimately, when you're making a musical, it's going to be hopefully like played by thousands of people. And so you want to make the parts not so specific to any one person, right? And so
Yeah.
that was helpful. The person who created our key art this past
Mhm.
round said something to me that really stuck with me, just that it's the same thing when it comes to the art, right? When you put art out into the world, for your show, you have to think, what is the community theater 20 years from now going to latch onto from your original key art?
Yeah.
And like, what's your phantom mask, or what's your, which was so cool to me as a marketer, and
Mhm.
as a creative. It's the same thing. You're creating these things for durability and and for repetition, and also for like photocopying basically, because like, there's going to be people are going to do whatever they're going to do with it when you put it out in the world.
Mhm.
And you have to have stuff that's sticky enough for people to grab onto, whether it's a melody, whether it's your character or the art itself. I mean, it's like every piece of it.
So then I got another question. So if millennials are killing musical, what is Gen Z doing to musicals?
Oh my gosh. I think y'all are probably saving musicals, right? Because but I assume that the majority of the theater TikTok community, although I know not everyone, I think some are millennials, but I know a lot of y'all are Gen Z,
Yeah.
right? So um I think just kind of the fandoms that have emerged, and again, people are, loving this access, and like being able to have these very specific audiences of folks that are really interested in very, again, specific pieces of these processes. So I think that the kind of willingness to share and the willingness to put content out there and connect is probably going to save musicals, at least in terms of audience. But I also know some really, really talented
Mhm.
folks that I've just around in the musical writing world that are kind of coming up, and Gen Z. So I think that they'll probably be doing great things too.
Yeah. And I was it's also we need people like you too that are embracing this and willing to take a chance, and because I mean it is a chance to be vulnerable with a show at this stage of development and let people in and trust your material as you said earlier on.
Yeah, no, thank you. It has been, I mean, there was definitely like I said, the panic moment of like, oh my gosh, am I really gonna let people watch the table reading? But I think it was absolutely the right decision for us. And I think, that's one thing I've noticed just in lurking in the theater TikTok community is this, first of all, like real respect for process and real respect for like if something's in previews,
Yeah.
we don't go hard on it. Like
Yeah.
finding the good in things, like people are really, even if someone doesn't like something, people always talk about, it's like I think as a because this is not a critics
Yeah.
like not a critics community. I think that everyone or people just really love theater,
Yeah.
right? And so I think understanding that was a huge there wasn't a lot of buy-in that was needed in terms of, because as the writer and Sierra and I are also long-term producers,
Mhm.
and obviously Liz and Out of the Box are the producers of this round, their nonprofit. So there was a little bit of conversation of like, what does this mean and how is this different than the content that Out of the Box is putting out, for example, and just a little bit of education, I
Yeah.
think. But you have to have that buy-in across the board in order to, because it has to get communicated with stage management, with the actors. Like we had to explain to everybody what we were doing, why we were doing it, why we thought, especially for Out of the Box as a nonprofit, how does this relate to their mission
Mhm.
as far as accessibility and bringing people into the process and creating new experiences. So I think that I'm hoping that that becomes perhaps more normal, but I also understand how challenging it is to get like agreement from everybody, right?
No. And I mean, I always say, like, as someone who sometimes gets invited to these things, I mean, very often when I'm invited to anything, it's in the previews process that I'm not
Yeah.
a reviewer. My goal is every show is for someone, and I'm supposed to be trying to get that show to you and tell you, is this a show for you, regardless of
Yeah.
whatever I think of anything.
Well, and I think that, you know, I'm always just I'm always shocked because I think that this show is so like women centric,
Mhm.
and the three lead women, and I and powered by women in terms of behind the scenes. So there was a long time I was like, oh, is anyone else gonna like this? And I'm just shocked all the time of people. I think when you tell a really specific story, that it doesn't, almost like people find their way in, right,
Yeah.
to whatever that story is. So I'm like, oh my gosh, is this so much about, motherhood, or so much about that people, and I'm just blown away all the time. If people are like, oh my, the existential crisis stuff I really relate to, or the social media stuff. When we walked into Baldwin Wallace, the whole room of, everyone there was 19 and 20, and we walked in and they said to us, this show is so relatable. We were like, wait, what is it? So I I think that it's great. And I love like discovering, as a writer, that's so satisfying and exciting for me to see people relating to something that, I think of like when I was younger and seeing Judd Apatow movies like the This Is 40 or like those
Yeah.
things, and just being like, haha, 40-year-olds, like I think sometimes I think we can all laugh at millennials now, or boomers can laugh at millennials, or I don't know. Gen X, I think I think they get it. They've been through it, but they still might laugh at us too. So it's okay.
I'll close with, is there anything else that you would like to add about the show, about the approach to social media, or anything else?
I guess one thing I didn't talk about was the music. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a musical, right? So
Yeah. That's kind of an important aspect.
yeah, kind of an important aspect. So the music is very pop.
Mhm.
I'm very much like a contemporary
Mhm.
pop musical theater writer. I come from, like, my sister's a pop songwriter. It's just, it's my sound. And I would say that the sound of this show is very like, well, it's funny because we've got Anne Juliet and stuff going on now, but it has that kind of late 90s, early 2000s mixtape
Yeah.
vibe going to it, but they're original songs. So I think if you liked something musically like an Anne Juliet, then that obviously this is a much smaller, it's an 8-person show, a 4-person band, it's a little bit more intimate. But if you like that kind of pop sound, then I think that it will be accessible. If you're looking for Sondheim, then it may not be like, if that is your number one thing, then you know, who knows? You never know. So,
Yeah.
but I always think it's good to be straightforward about what the music is like.
Yeah, no. And I've listened to a few of the songs that are like floating around
Yeah.
from like various concert performances, and they're all like so much fun. And that's a great description of all of them.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, not hashtag not Sondheim. Yeah.
No. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for being willing to do this.
Oh, absolutely. I'm happy to chat and like